G'day everyone, Jamie Chapman here for 3-Minute Histology. In this video we're going to be continuing our look at the histology of the uterus and the endometrium in particular. At this time we're actually going to be looking at a section from the endometrium or the uterus from a person who is in the middle of the proliferative phase of the menstrual cycle. So let's start our 3 minutes. So if you remember that the uterus is divided into an outer endometrium, a middle myometrium, and an outermost perimetrium, and the endometrium is further subdivided into an outer stratum functionalis or functional layer and the stratum basalis or basal layer. Now what happens is during the 28-day cycle we have 3 phases. The first 5 days are the Menses phase, then from day 5 to day 14 is the proliferative phase, so this is what we're looking at now, and then from day 14 to day 28 is the secretory phase. So if you've watched the previous video on Menses, you would have seen that what happens in Menses is that the stratum functionalis is shed through ischemia, and eventually what happens in the proliferative phase is we actually see regrowth of that stratum functionalis from the tissue within the stratum basalis. So if we zoom in here, we can see this is nice surface epithelium. So previously in the Menses uterus we saw there was no surface epithelium. We've got a nice surface epithelium now. It's a simple ciliated columnar epithelium, and we can see these endometrial glands. Now these glands are typically simple straight tubular glands during the proliferative phase. So it's a very classic feature to look for if you're trying to distinguish a section of the Menses versus proliferative versus secretory phases. First of all, look at the shape of the endometrial glands. If they're straight tubules like this, we can see them in cross section here, nice round profile with a nice lumen in the middle there, not very wide lumen, very quite small lumen, and not a lot of material inside that lumen. This is very typical of a section of the endometrium from the proliferative phase of the menstrual cycle. This is the connective tissue stroma. You can see it's very cellular. We've got increasing density of these cells as we move closer and closer to the stratum basalis. So we can see the stratum basalis down here. We've got the base of the glands, and found within the stroma we might be able to see some evidence of the spiral arterioles. So those are the arterioles which grow out of the straight arterioles within the stratum basalis and then provide the blood supply to the stratum functionalis. So should fertilization and implantation take place, then those blood vessels are actually going to be the ones that make contact with the developing placenta or the developing embryo to actually make that maternal fetal circulation. Just zooming out again, so we can actually see a little bit of evidence of some spiral endometrial glands here. So this indicates it's probably heading towards late the proliferative phase, so we're actually getting movement towards the transition towards the secretory phase of the menstrual cycle. But the majority of the profiles are actually cross-section, simple straight tubular glands. So this is the typical appearance of the endometrium in the proliferative phase.